You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wood.
And I'm Jennifer Connor.
From Equestrian Businesswomen, and you're listening to Equestrian B2B, the podcast that brings together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and equestrians for conversations about how they build and sustain a successful business.
On today's show, we speak with Chloe Phillips Harris about the Mongolian expeditions she runs, her wild Mustang retraining business, and her experience as a 4-star eventer.
Chloe Phillips Harris is an inspirational leader, intrepid adventurer, and equestrian athlete from Northland, New Zealand. She works full-time breaking in and training horses, as well as leading expeditions to far-flung frontiers. Chloe has trained wild stallions in New Zealand, helped set up animal welfare organizations to aid working animals in Egypt, India, and Fiji, and raced across Mongolia. In addition, she works with eventing athletes and teaches clinics around the world. Hi, Chloe. We're so excited to have you here today and to talk about you and your career and the various businesses that you have now. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm excited to be here and talk to you guys as well.
It's so great to have you on and that you were able to work with us on this time change. For everybody listening, Chloe is in New Zealand, and so we wanted to work it out so that she wouldn't have to get up in the middle of the night to talk to us.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've done some middle of the night, early morning podcasts in the past, and this is a much better time zone for me.
Yeah, and it works for us too.
And I got to meet Chloe when I was at the World Horse Expo in Harrisburg, and she was at a booth right across from us. And I saw her signs, and I watched one of her sessions for the clinic portion of it. And I was like, wow, because it's such an interesting story, and you've done so many different things. So one thing that really stood out to me was that you rode in the Mongolian Derby. Am I saying that correctly? Is it Mongolian Derby? Is it Mongol Derby? How do I say that even?
Oh, look, like honestly, even all these years later, I'm not quite sure which one's correct. I always say the Mongol Derby. Some people the Mongol Derby, but I'm definitely the Mongol Derby. The Mongol Derby, sorry.
So what made you ride in that?
I honestly could not see any reason why you wouldn't ride in it. I had this background in working with wild horses and training horses and horsemanship and eventing. And I saw a YouTube video of it, as you do, one day. And it was like of people like trying to clamber aboard these rearing, bucking, bolting horses in the middle of Mongolia, and I'm like, that looks great. That looks exactly like something I would like to do. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, this is for me. Fast horses, no fences, wide open spaces, and a way to test yourself. Like it just ticked every single box of what I wanted to do at the time.
You and I are very different people, Chloe.
Same. I mean, in theory, it sounds good to me, but there's no way I would actually do it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe like 25 years ago, I would have done that. Still, though, it might have been a stretch. I'm not a camper. I'm not a horse who likes, or a rider who likes to be on bucking horses. So yeah, it's incredible.
So with the Derby, do they are they broke horses or they're unbroke horses?
They are broken in, but they're I think like there's so many myths and legends and things surrounding the Mongol Derby these days. But no, they are broken in horses, but they're broken in for Mongolian riders, and that they are all pre-selected about 6 weeks, 8 or 2 months before the race, and in theory put into a training program for the Mongol Derby. But I mean, there's still horsemanship involved, and they've not seen people turn up in this brightly colored different gear. The saddles are different, the packs are different. Some people are not used to, the Mongolians, they step up, they get in the saddle and they go. A lot of the, riders from our world kind of flap around next to the horse, slowly climb aboard. And yeah, the Mongol horses, like that's not how they do things. So it always leads to lots of wild moments.
So besides having great horsemanship skills, what other kind of skills did you need to have going into it?
I think the horsemanship helped me a lot. I think the fact that, horse training and horse behavior is my thing. And also being an event rider, I'm used to going at pace. I think so many things help me now in hindsight. Like I had hours and hundreds of miles in the saddle before I did the Mongol Derby, whether that was out eventing or growing up riding over farms and being very independent. Like I was used to being out on my own on a horse. And I think that's a huge thing that helped me for the race. I think even just, my background, I was used to problem solving on my own. I'd also worked in a lot of different countries doing the animal welfare side of things. And I think that helped me, it wasn't my first time overseas. I'd worked with some feral horses before. And I think just the general, I want to say street sense, but it's not street sense, but like the general horse sense of how horses operate over country. So knowing not to try and climb a steep cliff on them to take a shortcut and just, following the contours of the land. And I think that general horsemanship skill helped a lot. And I loved the race and I learned a lot on the race. And then I actually went back and worked for the Mongol Derby for a long time afterwards. And I rode the race twice more, but this time with a camera filming for them.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot on the first race, and I learned a lot from watching and crewing and watching what didn't work for people, which was even more fascinating. And then, riding it twice more with a camera, I learned even more and just loved it. Yeah, it was great.
So I know I've shared this with Jen before and our listeners, but when I was in high school, I taught riding lessons, and there was a man who came to learn to ride, and he was an older gentleman. I'm going to say he was like 60s, and he had never ridden before, but his goal was to go and ride in the Mongol Derby. And I didn't really know anything about what it was. And the woman who owned the farm was like, I don't know if this is real or not, but he swore that that's what he was going to do. And he took like a very short course in riding. And I never heard from him again. So
hopefully he made it.
People do it though, like I've seen people do it, and they learn to ride just to do the Mongol Derby because it's such an amazing race. I've got a friend who did exactly that. She learned to ride to do the Mongol Derby, and she made it. And people do, and I think it's that absolute mental resilience, physical resilience. And I think sometimes not coming in with too many preconceived plans or ideas about how you're going to do.
Like, I was going to say that.
Like a lot of those people, the brilliance in the way they can do it is because they swing a leg on the horse and let the horse do their thing. Whereas sometimes if you come from a very conventional background, lots of people try to micromanage, and that just does not work.
Right.
So there are people that literally spend a year, 6 months learning to ride, and then they go and do it. And honestly, they're phenomenal. Like they usually get across. I mean, not usually. Enough of them do finish it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing to me.
I mean, maybe it's better to just not know and be naive kind of, or not, like you said, like not know what horses really should do, I guess. And that's incredible.
With like the police officers over here, most of them, they actually prefer that they don't have experience going in. Like they want to teach them their way fresh and, a different, like through their program. They don't want you to actually have a bunch of experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So.
And how old are you when you did it the first time?
I was 24, I think, 25, about there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. Did you have to have like camping skills, or did you have places to stay?
So you don't have any set places to stay. I don't know if that's maybe changed a little bit in the last year, but I think when I did it, there was no set places to stay. So you rode for as long as you could ride. And then you could either, if there was a nomadic family that could take you in, or if it was a horse station where all the horses were going to be, that was usually a nomadic family running that station. So you could stay there, or you could choose to take either a tent or a bivouac bag or something to just camp out by yourself with your horse. Most of the time I just rode for as long as I could ride, and then hoped that some lovely herding family might take pity on me and take me in. And that did happen quite a lot. And those were some pretty special nights, just staying with some, families that some of them I think had an idea the race was going on, and there was definitely one family that had no idea what I was doing in the middle of Mongolia on a horse by myself, and so that also made for some pretty funny nights.
And I
So-
take it they probably didn't speak English or not very
No,
well.
yeah, not very well, no, but enough that you can get along. And yeah, like
Yeah.
I've had plenty of camping experience if I had to camp out. And yeah, again, like lots of working with horses and traveling in various parts of the world that probably helped me feel a little bit more confident in those situations.
Yeah, that's great.
How many days was it?
I think the maximum riding days is 10, and I did it in 6.
Oh, okay. So
Oh,
that's reasonable. It's not like you're out there for a month or something.
No, and it's fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you're literally,
Yeah.
it's no pony trek. I think that's what people underestimate is they think, oh yeah, we're going to go there and we're going to go to steady jog and maybe a bit of walking. Like you're going fast to make that time, to make that within the 10 days, you know, even doing the maximum time allowed, you are going at pace for a lot of it.
And do you switch horses throughout it?
Yeah, every when I was doing it, it was every 40 kilometers, and they've brought that back, I think, to about 35 kilometers now. I don't know what that is in miles, but yeah. So every 35 or 40 kilometers, and there's pretty stringent vet checks in place as well that run to FEI standards. So yeah, it's the horse welfare is pretty paramount.
Wow,
That's great to
awesome.
hear. Mhm.
Yeah.
So, with doing that derby and, having the experience that you had with horses and traveling around the world, how did you first become involved with the expedition company?
So I actually started the expedition company.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I had been in Mongolia. I'd done the Derby. I had done a lot of traveling around Mongolia in my downtime. So I did the Mongol Derby, and then the next year I came back and worked for it, and then I traveled on my own around Mongolia with friends once. And I just loved it, and I loved going to more and more remote places. And I think I loved the horsemanship side of things, but I also was really curious about how were they using camels, or how were they using reindeer, or how were they hunting with eagles. So I spent a lot of time kind of going out and going and seeing different nomadic groups, different herding families, seeing how they were using their animals. And I had really good friends in Mongolia, two of the Mongolians. And one day we just got chatting, and I'd been going on and on and on about wanting to do something with camels. I really like camels. And I really wanted to do, a bit of a Gobi desert crossing with camels. And then my really good friend, she was like, well, the camels look way better in winter. They're all beautiful. They're all frosted. She was describing how the camels look down the Gobi Desert in winter. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really good. Like, let's cross the Gobi Desert in winter. And the Gobi Desert in winter is about -40 degrees Celsius, which is about the same in Fahrenheit. It's not much difference at that temperature. And I was like, yeah, this sounds really good. Like, if we're going to do it, let's do something extreme. And then we got talking a bit more, and they're like, well, if we're going to do this, why don't we bring clients? And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And that's how we started an expedition company. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that. Like, I'd worked on various other expeditions and a lot more background. And a couple of years before that, someone had actually asked me if I'd do tours in Mongolia, and I'd said no, because I just didn't feel it was the right time, or probably not the right ethics for me, that particular situation. But when this came about, and yeah, it just all fit. We were 3 of us. We were all really good friends. We all brought something really different to the table. I loved doing things with animals. My friend Setski, she really wanted to show off Mongolian culture. She's very proud of it. And then we have one other business partner called Urmburn, and he is really passionate about the Mongolian people. He really, and their rights and their way of life, and preserving it and showing it off and helping support the nomadic herders out in their regions. So yeah, it was a really great meeting of minds where everyone brought in a different set of skills and a different passion that combined in a really positive way. So that's how it all came about.
What was it like working with your friends on something like that?
Amazing. Yeah. Incredible. And to this day, incredible. It's just so good. And I think because we don't step on each other's toes, we all have a different set of skills and slightly different, visions at times, but they all combine really well.
That's great. And from doing those expeditions, what skills do you think you learned along the way?
I think what I probably did right is I waited and did a lot of, I worked for an Australian expedition company. I I had done a lot of logistics and overseas planning for equine and veterinary trips overseas. So I think I did a lot of my learning before I started the company. And then, I mean, it's always, doesn't matter what business you have, you're always learning and tweaking. And, we always are looking to improve, looking how we can do things better. If it was all left up to me, I am very much, if you're not suffering, you're not having fun. Like, that's very much like, let's push the limits. Like, let's do this. Like, if we're going to go hardcore. Like, that is always what I believe. But my friend Setsuki is like, no, we need to have good food and we need to have beautiful outfits for the people, and they need to come back having had an amazing time and being blown away by like all Mongolia has to offer. And I think probably like these days, I'm definitely like, oh yeah, okay, if she says we should add this little bit of luxury to the trip, then I believe her. And I think that kind of stuff we really trust each other's judgment on more and more. And then you just learn, what people, I think I already knew from doing things, what people can cope with, how far you can push people, and what they really want to see and enjoy. But I think just managing groups and stuff, you always tweak it, always improving. But in general, I love meeting all of our clients. I think you can count so many of them as friends after expeditions, and it's really cool to see them go through something that's pretty life-changing as well. And I think that's probably, it's such a good learning experience. And I also think it keeps you really humble. Like, the Mongol Derby changed my life. And I think, I'm lucky enough to do expeditions that probably have a pretty big impact on other people's lives these days. And it's really humbling experience to watch people go through that. And yeah, I don't know if that answered your question at all, but
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine, because we've heard this from other people who have traveled overseas, how humbling it can be to like go over and see different cultures, and like especially the nomadic culture, and then come back to your homeland, and it makes you kind of appreciate what you have as well, So that's really interesting that you're able to bring that to other people. How many people were on your first expedition?
There was 9 of them plus me. So yeah, 10 overseas people.
That's a big group.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did it take?
So it was 300 kilometers and it took us 10 days. So we were out in the Gobi Desert in 10 days. And the best part about it, like, I love this, but it was the coldest expedition we have ever done. So we've done that expedition almost every year since, apart from the COVID years. But that particular expedition was the coldest it has ever been. So it's called the Gobi Cold Camel Expedition. And it's the day we started, it was like -43. And there was like a cow frozen solid outside that had frozen.
No, stop.
Yeah, it was like extreme cold.
And camels can handle it.
Camels can handle it, but the very first day of our very first expedition was the coldest it has ever been. We've never had a day that cold since. But I love it. I was like, yes, this is the way you kick it off. Like, what a great start. Like, go big or go home.
It is yet another way we diverge. Absolutely. I live in Florida. I don't do winter.
But no, it was great. My brother came with me for that first expedition, and some of the clients were people I didn't know, but I had a couple of friends that came along as well. And it was just the coolest way to start it. It was amazing. 1 or 2 of them had done the Mongol Derby before. Yeah, it was a great way to start.
Yeah. And that made you want to keep going and grow this company and what you could do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we just keep growing it and keep tweaking it and keep expanding what we offer to this day.
Did you have anybody drop out the first day when they got there, or they kind of were like, you know what, we're here?
We've never had anyone drop out. Like, we do have support vehicles for ours. And so occasionally people will be like, you know what, I'm going to jump in the support vehicle for a day and just enjoy the countryside and enjoy, we've got an interpreter in the support vehicle and they tell stories, and it's a chance to actually just sit in the car and hear all the stories. So, occasionally you do. And I think for me, maybe that is one learning thing. Like, I am very much like, no, but you have to ride the whole way. Like, why would you not want to ride the whole way? And then for me, it's always good to be like, oh no, actually, for some people it doesn't matter. They just want to enjoy the experience. And if they don't have to ride the whole way, that's absolutely fine. So now it doesn't, I'm like, yeah, if you want to jump in the support vehicle, jump in, have fun. We'll keep riding, and we'll see you at dinner time.
What other animals do you use?
Oh, we use all the animals. So that was a huge driving force for me. Like, I am very passionate about horsemanship. I also think how we use animals and how animals have a place in our lives going into the future is a really big question. And I think looking at how some of these cultures are still using animals in a really positive way was always a huge driving force behind doing these expeditions. So originally, I wanted to cross Mongolia using all the different riding animals. So that was horses, camels, yaks, and reindeer. And that's what we did for the first time last year. That was our biggest expedition. It was 21 days and 1,200 kilometers. And that's what we did last year. So we use all the animals that can be ridden in Mongolia. We have our Great Nomad Expedition, and that's July this year. And so that's, again, using all four, the camels, horses, yaks, and reindeer. And then we have an autumn reindeer expedition that's just reindeer. We have the Gobi Cold Camel Expedition, which is just camels. And we have Attack of the Yaks, which is just yaks. But it's like the leisurely, just beautiful, fun. The yaks are pretty slow. You're not having to do
I was just going to say, you don't gallop on yaks.
You're not galloping on yaks. You just get to enjoy the beautiful autumn colors and the nomadic culture and stuff like that. So, yeah, we have a bit of a variety now, but we use everything.
What's the most comfortable to ride?
I think the camels are, but not everyone agrees with me. The yaks are really comfortable, surprisingly. Like, everyone thinks they're going to be horrendous, but they're really, really smooth. They've got lovely gaits. They're just a really enjoyable animal to ride, and you're always going up beautiful mountains, so there's always a stunning landscape. But then, the horse is incredible because they're fast. Some of the camels are, they're all good. They're all good.
They each have their pros and cons, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly.
And so I imagine, growing this takes an incredible amount of logistics and planning and, getting visas for people and getting government support and all of that. Who handles all of that for you? Is that something you do? Is it people that you employ, or do you have consultants and contractors that work for you?
Yeah, so a bit of everything. Like, I am the main person that people will talk to when they're signing up for expeditions. So I will give them all the relevant info, how they get their visas. Mongolia's actually just gone visa free this year, which has really helped reduce my workload a bit, because before that you had to do letters of invitation and, all sorts of things. But this year, Americans, Australians, Kiwis, Canadians, you're all visa free. So that's really reduced the workload. But yeah, we share it. I'm usually the person with all of our clients. I've got people behind the scenes that might do some of the government stuff. Between the three of us that are business partners, one person does all the logistics with the nomadic families, with the herding families. So they'll be out for months at a time, doing the route, talking to families, making sure we have contracts in place with the families. And then Setsuki, my business partner, does a lot of what's in the city and hotel bookings. Yeah, so it's a real mix of, we all try to do our fair share and combine. But yeah, it takes a big team, and it takes a lot of time behind the scenes to pull off these kind of expeditions, because we are in, like, our expeditions specialize in remote areas. So you are not anywhere near roads. You're not going to tourist camps. You're not going anywhere near a highway. So ours really do, we're planning a year in advance for every expedition we do.
Wow. And are your business partners both women?
No, Setsuki is a woman and Unumburan is a man. And yeah, so it's a good combination.
Yeah.
Do you have the people who are coming on the expeditions, do they have to do any, like, is there a prerequisite for them for riding physical, just to protect yourself in the business?
Yeah, definitely. There is. So everyone, you have to apply to come on an expedition. You can't just, pay your fee and turn up on the day. And I try to always interview or talk or in some way, go through people's resumes and kind of find out why they're wanting to come, especially, and what their skills are. Have they ridden a horse before? Are they comfortable at walk, trot, canter? And again, we have different expeditions that might suit different people. And different skill levels. Surprisingly, like and again, it's mixing the group. Like I couldn't have a whole team of all beginners on, say, the camel expedition, but if you have one or two beginners, you're usually okay. And the camels, they've got 2 humps. I mean, it's not that hard to stay between the humps. So quite often with the camel expedition, we get a really keen girlfriend who horse rides, and they bring their non-horse riding or very lightly horse riding partner along. And actually that works out well. And the guys usually get right into it. By the end, they're like, yeah, I'm going to go home and take up horse riding. Like, this has been great. But then for the Great Nomad Expedition, it's really fast paced. You're not getting on and walking, you're getting on and kind of trot, cantering, galloping on the horse section. So there you do have to actually have some decent horse riding experience. And then the yaks, again, it's a bit slower, so you can have a more novice group. But yeah, we basically, like, we run very specific expeditions and not back-to-back horse treks as such. So it's never, ever going to be the type where you come along and you get put on a line and you go for a quiet plod along, a very well-established trail. That's probably not our thing.
So what's your target audience for this? And how do you market it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, I mean, our target audience is not gender specific, it's not age specific, it's more just people who want to do something a little bit out the box, who want to have an adventure, who want to get outside or off the beaten track as such. And it's really interesting who signs up. And again, like, always have amazing people turn up, like really interesting people. Like, I really enjoy all my clients. And as far as ages, we get everything from 20 to in their mid 60s, approaching 70 turn up. And you get everything from young, keen people just really wanting to test themselves out, all the way to maybe people who have raised a family and suddenly for the first time in their life actually have free time and have dreamed of this their whole life, and everything in between. And it's not one country. I mean, we get a lot of Americans, we get a lot of people from the UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. Yeah, it's always a really interesting mix, and I always love it. And it's always people you'd never get the chance to cross paths with maybe in your everyday life because you're in such different spheres, but have this thing in common, and it makes for really great friendships and really interesting fireside chat. And I think it's part of the magic of it, actually, is that, yeah, it's a very diverse group.
And where do you do your marketing for it?
Lots of social media. Lots of, like, we have a website, but mostly through social media and lots through word of mouth. Lots of return customers who then send their friends along on different expeditions. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you have repeat customers?
Yeah, we do. We have people that are like determined to do every single expedition with us, and it's so cool. We've got a couple of repeats this year. No one's done the same expedition twice, but lots of people who are like, yes, I did that one, so I'm coming back for the yaks, or I'm coming back for the camels, or I'm coming back for the reindeer, which is really, really awesome. And we've got one girl who's come on a couple expeditions, and now one of the interpreters that we've used lots has become her friend, is actually going to visit her in Canada for a month this year. So it's really cool. It's like a little family, a little expedition family, which I like. But yeah, lots of marketing through social media, obviously things like the Horse Expo and stuff as well. But I'd say, the people who get in touch and sign up and are 100% coming, and that you don't have to convince them, they're usually their friends have come on it, or they just see it and they're like, absolutely, like, that just speaks to my soul, I'm coming. And yeah, they've usually seen a photo of a frozen camel trotting through the desert or something. Yeah.
Do you have to really determine what your costs are before you start and know, you have to have 10 people in order to make this work? And I imagine, it takes a lot of pre-planning to be able to determine if something is going to be worthwhile.
huge amount. Yeah, very, very much so. And yeah, it's that fine balance, because we don't take more than 10 people on an expedition. Because once it starts getting bigger than that, it becomes a bit of a circus. And realistically, because we try to stay with nomadic families every night as well, we stay with a different family, and then that's just a bit too much animals that you're having to bring in or take out, and a bit too much. There's just too many of us once you get over those numbers, and you do want to keep it a really special, intimate experience. But yeah, we definitely have a number where it has to be above that to break even, and then we cap it at 10 to keep, because I think our expeditions are so unique, and I think capping it at 10 keeps it that way. You don't feel like you're just a class full of people, or you're on a bus tour or anything like that. But yeah, and it's very difficult at the moment. The last couple of years we've had COVID. Mongolia is not the easiest place to get supplies at the best of times. It's always pretty tricky logistics getting what you need in and out of the country, and particularly difficult at the moment. So yeah, it takes a lot of planning and a lot of logistics and a lot of looking at what things like gas prices and everything like that are doing at the moment to make sure that everyone is going to get paid and we're going to make a profit.
Yeah. And do you work with a local person who supplies the animals, or is it someone you go back to?
Yeah, we work with lots of different people. And so our business model is basically to try and bring money into these really remote areas. And so for that reason, the animals we use a few from many different families. So we don't have one guy that supplies 100 horses. And the way we travel, we never take any animals out of their home range. So with the camels, you have the camels for 3 days, and then another bunch of camels come in, and that next bunch of 12 camels might come from 3 different families. And so it's our way of trying to just making sure we have a really positive impact on the places we go. Makes for a lot of logistics, but I think worth it, and we get amazing animals, and we get amazing relationships with the families we use, and it's like seeing your old friends every time you turn up on the expedition, and you see familiar faces and familiar animals, and it's really neat.
I've said this before, I think in our last episode, about a speaker that we had at a networking brunch, and she was talking about social purpose, and that companies have to tell their customers what they stand for and what they believe in and what they support. And I imagine, that ethos is extremely important to you and your business partners and your company, to be able to say to clients, like, this is what we do, this is who we want to help, this is, why we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, it's a huge driving force with me. And I think it's why I probably waited quite a while to do something like this. And again, for my business partners, I mean, we all have slightly different things that are our main cause, but they tie in together so nicely. And I think we've had, I'm really proud of what we've achieved. And we've done so many documentaries that have been shown on Mongolian TV as well, and which has been really special and a really unintended consequence for me when I first started doing this. But, there's areas of Mongolia that Mongolians don't get to see that we go to. So we were able to make documentaries about those places and get to show them on Mongolian TV, and they've been really popular, and people have loved it because they get to see a part of their own country that they wouldn't get to, that 99% of them are not going to get to. So that's had really unexpected positive consequences. And I think for me, I'm very much someone who just lives by my morals, and probably to the detriment of my bank account, to be honest. But it's definitely something we strive to keep as first and foremost of what we do.
That's great.
Yeah. Now, do they provide the animals? Do they also provide all the equipment that you need, or is that something you have to source as well? Yeah.
So we have our own equipment, and that's just, logistics to make sure that there will be enough, and that it is. I don't think anyone from outside of Mongolia is going to be keen to sit in a Mongolian saddle for 1,000 kilometers. Like, we would not have repeat customers if that was the case. So we have our own kind of endurance saddles that we use, and a lot of our own equipment, and we have our own trucks and vehicles, and we have a huge team.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so how does all of this experience and part of your career tie into what you do with wild horses?
Yeah, I think it was, probably the experience with wild horses that made me think I could do the Mongol Derby, which took me to Mongolia. And then for me, our expedition season is not year round. I mean, we have a couple of expeditions throughout the year, but I'm not in Mongolia all year. And then for me, like, I love working with wild horses. I passionately love it. And again, we have a bit of a season for that, for when, we have to do musters and help with population control. And it works in with a lot of office work on my part and a lot of juggling. It works in with the expeditions. And so that when I'm in New Zealand, I'm working a lot with wild horses. And when I'm overseas, I'm doing the expeditions. Yeah. And I think, again, cool. Yeah, I love it. It's not something that is potentially, I wouldn't be like, yeah, this is an easy career path to anyone. It is not simple, and it takes a bit of flexibility. But for me, it's absolutely worth it.
And is the work with the wild horses something that you just do because you love it, or is it part of a business, something that you do to earn money?
Yeah, this is the very good question. Very good. So it started, I think wild horses in all the developed world are a problem just because of their sheer numbers. I know America, Australia, New Zealand, they are constantly needing homes. And when I was a working pupil and kind of starting out on my own in the equestrian world, I used to take them on and produce them. I still do this. I take them on and produce them as competition horses. And I started with just doing the stallions because I didn't have the time or the resources or the paddocks or anything to have pregnant mares. And so it just made sense for me to take on stallions and train them and produce them. And then it got to the point where people were like, so we'll send you all the stallions that are left in the yards at the end of muster. And then it just kind of kept on growing and growing. And it used to be that, I'd take on a handful a year and I'd train them and produce them as eventing horses. And that has changed a lot since I started doing it in 2010. And so now I'm very actively involved in helping manage populations, wild horse populations near me, which means I actually go out and I muster horses on horseback. And then I am part of drafting them in the yards. The majority get sent to my place. Sometimes that can be, 30 horses or more at a time of wild horses, which is always a little bit stressful. And then it is a mix. It's a mix of business and it's a mix of, I believe in this cause, so I stay actively involved in it. And yes, I run workshops so people can come and stay with me for 5 days or 10 days and do a foal training workshop. So maybe, I know a muster's coming, I'll have clients already booked in, and I know that the first week those horses arrive, we'll handle all the foals and they'll get to go off to their new homes. And it's just a really great way of placing these horses and setting them up for success, and also helping me cover the cost of taking them all in. It does get to more and more now that we're in the process of making it an official charity, because the scale of it is just so massive now. Like last week I was up, there was a wild mare who had gotten wire embedded in her leg, and she was walking around just dragging wire coil around her neck, around her leg, sorry. And so, I happened to be in the area and we went and got her in and we treated her and looked after her. And that's never going to be for profit. No one is making money going and helping horses that are injured. And no one's making money constantly taking in herds because they've wandered onto someone's farm and now need to be removed before they're, going to be shot or cause damage or steal someone's domestic horses. You're not making money taking on constant herds of wild horses. That's definitely the charity arm of it. And what, I feel like I had the skills to help, so I always should. But then, on the flip side, I do earn part of my living doing wild horse workshops and teaching horsemanship and helping people tame their own wild horses and that kind of thing.
I saw a video of you going and getting a foal that was on somebody's farm. and you
Yes.
had to go round it up.
Yeah, happens all the time. Like, I don't think, not a month goes by where the phone doesn't ring and someone's like, yeah, there's this, wild foal's wandered out of the bush, or it's wandering down the road, or hey, there's this whole herd of wild horses on my property now. Can you come get them all? So
Wow.
it definitely keeps life in New Zealand exciting.
I mean, I imagine it is a problem New Zealand isn't a very big place, really. And if you've got these herds that just keep procreating and you just don't have the space to put them, whereas, the United States is, if they're out west, is a pretty giant place. And even we have trouble with it,
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I can imagine how much you need it there.
Absolutely, yeah. And especially when we have good seasons, the horses breed in huge numbers, and then you have bad season and then it's not so good. But we're really lucky, like the wild horses that are near me. I mean, once they're under saddle, some of them can foot it with the best in the competition ring. Like, I've had many go on to do well nationally and be really super successful. So I think the lucky thing for me is they have a very good chance at a really good domestic life, and a really, if they need to be, they can be really competitive horses. You're not dealing with scrub donkeys that are, 13 hands brown with a hammerhead and inbred. We're very, very lucky in that regard that we have really beautiful wild horses. Not that looks should matter. It definitely helps in trying to home wild horses.
Yeah. So it's on the inside.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you know what breed they came from originally?
Everything.
Yeah. Like thoroughbred and a mix of...
Oh, yeah. I would say everything. Like, I have lines that come out looking very Araby. I have lines that come out looking, like they've got a bit of Clyde in them. I think it's everything. And I think it's probably... I would be not surprised at all to know that, horses are reintroduced out there quite often. So the bloodline is getting refreshed quite often as well. Is the unfortunate sad truth. But here, very much a mix. Not the Western breeds, not much, there wouldn't be much quarter horse or paint horse or anything like that, but very much, you're looking at thoroughbred, Clydes, Arabs. Yeah, they a real mix. Yeah.
What are the ponies? Because I saw that's like different. Is that a different breed? Like small?
Wait, are you talking about my tiny ponies?
Yes.
So on a completely different side note, I got a little bit bored over the COVID lockdown and thought that it would be really cool to have an adventure race in New Zealand, kind of like what we do with the expeditions overseas. Okay. And so we decided we'd do it with miniature ponies, because everyone knows that I do wild horses, and they try to give me wild miniatures all the time, which there is no use for. And it's not helpful to my equestrian business whatsoever. But anyway, me and a friend came up with the great idea that we'd do a multi-day adventure race with all these delinquent miniature ponies.
No.
So that's how I have miniature horses, which really confuses everyone, because they're like, you do sport horses and you do wild horses, and what are these little things? But I actually, in 2 days, I'll be taking 30 miniature ponies that are now super fit and look like eventing horses, and we're going to go up and do a 100-kilometer race through the beach and forest where these wild horses also roam. And we just get runners, we get ultra runners, we get families, we get people who've never exercised before in their life, and they get to come and do kind of an adventure expedition race, leading a little miniature pony with their kit and a saddlebag on the miniature pony.
Like, when can Connor and I come do that? I would do that.
Yeah, I would do that. I would definitely do it.
Yeah. Honestly, we get overseas people come and do it. So come along. Like, you get to stay in a beautiful lodge. It's a beautiful area. The miniature ponies are super fit and good at their job and really well behaved now. And they're just so much fun. Like, you couldn't pay me to walk 100 kilometers, but give me a little horse to jog alongside. I'm like, yes, let's do it.
Do they carry your pack and stuff?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, some people put all their stuff in the pack, and some people just like having a backpack. But the little guys, they trot along. They love their job. Some of them get really competitive. We have to match the competitive ponies with the competitive runners. And then
I'll take the fatter, slower ones. And...
Yeah, we've got a few of those as well. We've got a few that are just happy to go for a stroll at your pace.
Yeah, that sounds like what I need.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. So I've seen the 100-mile. They do a 100-mile race in Vermont, where they have runners and riders. But wouldn't it be funny if the runners had the ponies with them?
Yes, that would be amazing. I just love how like you adapt yourself to what is there and how you can help and like rescue these ponies that needed it too. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm a big believer like horses actually need a use. And you can't justify saving them if you can't also give them something to do. Otherwise, you're just becoming another horse hoarder that becomes part of the problem. So I'm very much, like especially the miniatures, there's nothing useful that, people just accumulate them and there's nothing to do if you're not a showy or you can't do harness. So this was a cool way to bring a bit of what I do overseas back to New Zealand, but in a much smaller package. And then you don't have to be horsey to do it. They're small enough that you can just come pick up the lead rope and go for a run.
Right.
Yeah, that is so cool. That has my mind like blown actually. Right
I know.
Now, thinking about like things that could be done with them.
I would have never imagined something like that. But when you say it, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, so you travel to and you do all this wild horse stuff and obviously mini pony stuff in New Zealand. But you also, so I met you over here doing an eventing clinic. So how often do you travel abroad doing that? And what, are you still connected to your eventing roots?
Yeah, I am still connected to my eventing roots. I still love eventing. I've got a young horse at the moment that I hope will be a good horse for the future. I still travel like around New Zealand a lot teaching eventing, definitely. And now over to the States. I'd love to do more in the States teaching eventing. It was so much fun to be at the Horse World Expo doing that over there. And then I went down and did a little bit in Texas as well. And I hope to just build that more and more and more. Because I think, like I did eventing professionally for over 10 years. And I love producing high-level horses. Like I love producing top-level horses, which I think these days no one knows that I actually do. They just think that I lead expeditions across Mongolia and ride crazy animals. But that was my life before expeditions, was eventing, and I'm very, very passionate. I really love teaching. I'm not the person to teach beginners, but I really, really love teaching people that, are trying to produce horses up the levels, and I love giving people the skills so that they can do that. I really, really enjoy it and I'm really passionate about it. So hopefully more and more of that to come.
How much of your total business would that be then? Is it a small part of it? Or is it bigger than we think?
Yeah, it used to be my whole business, really. It used to be 90% of my business. And now I would say it's roughly probably a third-ish. Yeah. Less producing big numbers of horses now, though. I'm much more like in the clinician role, and I really love doing the clinic format. Like I love traveling and doing a couple of intense days of teaching people rather than having maybe a stable full of clients' horses that you're having to produce. Mainly because I can't do that anymore anyway, because I'm away for so much of the year. Like I'm here, there and everywhere. So it wouldn't work to have a team of clients' horses or a huge team of my own eventing horses now. But yeah, I'd say it's roughly still a third of my business and something that I still very much love doing. I've had a couple of kids here this morning. They're about to go to a big show on the weekend. So we've been doing, they're jumping about, 3'3" or something, or 3 foot, a meter here. And so, yeah, they all had an eventing tune-up this morning and did some tough cross-country lines and a bit of making sure they're on track for the eventing, and really enjoyed it. So this morning, it's eventing this morning, and then this afternoon we've got a couple of wild horses to work, and the kids are downstairs at the moment scrubbing all my miniature ponies for the big 100-kilometre race at the end of the week.
So, obviously, the next logical step after a life of all of these adventures is to write a book about it. And can you share with us kind of that experience and why you decided to do that?
Yeah, definitely. So the very honest answer is that I did the Mongol Derby. I was doing all these things, and I've always loved writing. Like that is one thing I always really do enjoy. I've always shared my wild horse journey just by either doing a blog or Facebook posts. Like I've always enjoyed the writing side, but HarperCollins someone contacted me from there and kind of said, would you be interested in writing a book? And at the time I was still in my mid-20s, and I hadn't really thought about writing a book at that stage of my life. But the opportunity came up and they're like, yeah, we'd like you to write a book. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's do it. Absolutely. And so I did. And I really enjoyed the process. And I still do really enjoy it. I'm almost finished writing a second book at the moment. I'm just not quite finding the last few spare moments to quite finish it. But yeah, I really, really enjoy writing, really like the process of doing the first book and getting it published. That was, when did it come out? It came out in 2018. So it's almost old now. But yeah, it was a very, very cool thing to be able to do. And the great thing about it was on really, really rainy days, I could justify sitting outside at my computer and not riding a horse because I was writing a book. So yeah, it was a good stormy day activity for about 6 months.
Is that how long it took you to write it? 6 months?
Yeah, it did. I think we signed the final contract in February, and I had to have it finished by September.
Wow,
and I joke
quick
about
turnaround.
Yeah, it was. I joke about the stormy days, but it actually was more like I got up very early every morning and dedicated a few hours every morning before I even went out to do the horses to writing part of it to get it done in that deadline and within that time, and still have a business outside of that.
Yeah. I mean, that takes a lot of dedication and being really strict with your time and what you devote it to.
Yeah. It definitely is. And I think for anything like that, like I have to make that a priority. Like it has to be the first thing I do in the day. For me, it can't be the last thing, because if I've ridden 10 horses and then try to sit down and concentrate, it doesn't work so well. So for me, it has to be, I'd rather get up very early before dawn and put a couple of hours in and then go and do all the horses.
Do you ever say no to anything?
Not that often. It probably gets me into trouble. I'm notoriously bad at saying no. Like whenever someone rings me up about horse problems, especially the wild horses, that I have a really bad reputation of always saying yes. And then we're like, why did I do that? I didn't need another herd of wild horses at my place. I just got rid of the last ones. I probably am a little bit inclined to be on the yes side of the spectrum. I don't think that I am, but everyone points out that I am. So maybe they're right.
But I mean, honestly, if it's not stressing you out to do it, then it's not an issue, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it doesn't stress me out. I definitely have my moments of like, okay, how is this all going to work out? But I always feel that there's a solution. Like there's a solution to everything if you're willing to figure out what that solution is.
Yeah. And I think you probably need to have a little faith, in yourself and what you do and your experience that you can solve those problems.
Absolutely. I think, and I think that's what expeditions and things like the Mongol Derby and the wild horses have taught me over the years is, I've had enough experience where it is only up to me to solve it. Like there is no other option than to solve whatever it is. And I mean, that might be as simple as just being on your own on the road to horse shows and trying to figure out how to get there. Or it might be, you're on your own in a yard with wild horses and hey, you just have to get these things trained. There is no other option. Or it might be out, on expeditions. But yeah, I think, it's easy to look back, but kind of starting from small things and just building, I guess, the belief in yourself that, if push comes to shove, you'll find a way to make this work.
Right.
How do you keep track of it all?
There's always room for improvement on that front. But no, I find like, for me, I have to make sure that I set aside office hours. And I am very much the person who's guilty of thinking like, oh, if I'm not physically working, I feel guilty because office hours, they don't work, but they are. And so I think over the last definitely 5 years of convincing myself that actually office hours are a very, very valuable part of my daily routine and actually essential to making all these things work. So for me, it's trying to make those office hours a priority. And that's why I tend to get up and do it really early in the morning, because otherwise a couple of weeks will go by and be like, oh, I haven't actually done all these emails and things that are essential to my business. I think just, allowing myself to think that sitting down in front of a desk is work has been a huge thing for me, and not feeling like I should be outside physically working. That's been probably the biggest lesson over the last, or since starting a company, 5-6 years. But yeah, making that logistic side, the office side, the priority, and doing that first, because there will always be more horses to train and help and do everything. But if I don't do the other side first, none of that's possible.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of business owners that we talk to feel the same way, like about accounting or, the financial side of their business. Like they want to go out there and they want to sell, or they want to design, or they want to manufacture, or whatever it is. And, the backside of running that business needs to be taken into consideration as well.
Absolutely. And I think especially in the horse industry, there's a really probably bad culture of that as well, of, so many people who are talented horsemen and women and, within the equine industry, but don't have thriving businesses because they don't make the business side a priority. And it's why podcasts like this, I think, are really useful in bringing these questions up, because I've definitely been guilty of it in the past and thinking, well, I'll just keep training horses and eventually it'll work out. But you actually don't do the business side and the office hours, it's never going to, equate. And I mean, there's so many broke horsemen and women out there, isn't there, that have so much talent. And yeah, it's really, really, really hard to do. It's really hard to get that balance right and do those office hours and get good advice on that as well.
Right.
Yep. I mean, especially for people who are so physical all the time, like horse trainers, being outside, I mean, that's where you want to be. That's why you do it. That's why you love it. So, it is.
Absolutely.
That's the tough part of it.
And I think a lot of guilt, like, I mean, it sounds silly, but like, I know a lot of people who feel like off the inside, they're not working. They like a lot of guilt, or like a really misplaced guilt about, you have to be out with the horse every moment to really be a horse trainer, but that's not actually true.
Yeah. Well, I know, Chloe, it's been really, really fun speaking with you and learning more about what you do. And Jen and I are going to discuss and see when we can come to New Zealand and do something with miniature horses for sure.
Yeah.
And at the end of each episode, we ask the same 4 questions to every guest, and Connor starts with the first.
What is one action that women can take to make a big difference in their lives?
I think believing that they can do it, and then supporting other women. Like, needs to be, not tear each other down. Talk to other women who are doing it. They don't offer advice. Find the one who will.
I like that.
What is the best habit that keeps you motivated personally?
I think always thinking that there's a solution to everything. It might not be there yet, but if you keep on at it, you'll find the solution to whatever you're trying to get through, or the next hurdle, or the next goal.
Yeah.
I read a book. It was called Everything's Figure Outable.
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking about that when I'm like stuck in a hard spot. I'm like, oh, but that book, everything is figure outable.
yeah, exactly.
What's your favorite horse movie?
Oh, probably The Man from Snowy River, because that's what we recreated a lot of our childhood with. We're like, let's see how steep we can go, and like lie back against the horse's arm, waving our arm. Yeah, definitely that.
Oh, I really hoped you were going to say that.
Yeah, I know. My dad will be so happy to hear that, because that's like his favorite all-time movie ever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. And who would you recommend to be a future guest on this podcast?
Oh, I really struggle with this one. There's so many amazing people. Like, I'd love to hear Janelle Price. I mean, she's a top-level eventer who made it as a non-horsey, from a non-horsey family. There's an amazing woman called Sarah Williams who does the Tough Girl podcast, and she interviews women who have made it in adventure and expeditions, and she gave up her corporate life to host a podcast. And I think it's really interesting to me. But honestly, like, maybe not as advice, but the interviews I'd be really intrigued to hear would be like the equestrian influencers? Can like someone interview them and get to the bottom of if they're actually making money? Like, I want to know the real answers. Like, are they using someone else's money? Is this a lifestyle? Are they actually making money? Like, if you can get some of them, actually get like the nitty gritty, I am dying to know.
All right.
Okay.
I love those suggestions. And yes. All right. We need to find some influencer and see how they make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like the influencers who you're like, they're not actually horse trainers. They're not actually like, they're influencers. Yeah. I'm just very curious. I mean, it's probably not quite what you were hoping for as an answer, but I'm just deeply fascinated to know.
I love it.
That's great.
Well, thank you so much for taking time with us today. It was really awesome to hear your story and learn more about you and talk with you about it.
Oh, thanks. Lovely talking to you guys as well. And hopefully we see you for a miniature pony race in New Zealand.
Yeah, we're going to figure a way to get down there.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
So much fun. It's so interesting. I mean, I could have gone on for hours asking her questions about that expedition.
I know, me too. I mean, really fascinating I just don't know, like, where people get the idea, the courage to do something like that, you know? Like, it's one thing to go and do a race like the Mongol Derby, like, fine. You know, I've known a few people who have done it, but to then say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get camels and I'm going to go through the Gobi Desert at -40 degrees, and it's going to be awesome. Like, and
I'm going to have 10 people go,
and I'm going to have people pay me to do it. Yeah. And I'm going to be responsible for them. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's
and then like to have reindeer and yaks.
I was like, I bet that's like sitting on a couch.
Yeah.
I'll take a slow yak, please.
Yeah. I know. It was just so interesting, and that she has these friends that she does it with that are her business partners, and like she actually started the company. I mean, to think of doing that, I don't think I would go to a place and be like, you know what, I think an expedition should be done here.
Yeah. And you know, like, she doesn't, I don't think, we didn't ask her, but I doubt she like speaks the language. And
right. She mentioned interpreters. So
she has to rely on a lot of people to make this work. So I can just imagine like how amazing her people skills are in order to work with, you know, people from a different culture. And you know, they have to work with people in the city to book in the hotels and the flights, and then all of the nomadic families that they lodge with along the rides, and the logistics to have the support vehicles and she said they bring in all of their own gear. Like, that is a lot of stuff to bring together like this. And like maybe you do it a few times and it's kind of the same every time ish, like, you know what you need, but she's still like working with different families, like she said, and finding, you know, sourcing the animals from different places. And I admire someone like that who just doesn't think that there's anything that isn't possible. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. And to have only 3 people. I mean, it's not this huge company,
right?
You know, it's her and 2 other people that do. I mean, I know they have support people that they probably pay and you know, have them, but they're not like, essentially they're not employees,
right?
It's like the 3 of them split up a lot of the work and they do it themselves, and you know, that's just amazing. Mm-hmm. And I also love the idea that, you know, it was important for them to give back to the community.
Absolutely.
You know, that was like such a good part of it, because you don't think about that. You know, so many times you go on vacation and it's not about spending your money there, right?
Right, exactly. And, you know, so many times people go on vacations to resorts or whatever, and the resorts don't give money to the local community for the, you know, for the most part. They're not, you know, supporting the places that they're using to make all of this money. And I really, that's another thing I admire, is that, you know, she and her business partners, they have different areas that are important to them. Like she said, her one partner wanted to really show what the people of Mongolia do and their culture, and explain it and have people support that. Yeah. And it's just, it's really cool to see them have that purpose and know that what they do is making a positive impact and not just using a place or a culture for what they can make money off of.
Right. I know. And that's what I was thinking when she was talking about, the nomadic lifestyle and, supporting it, but almost like preserving it, right? Like,
right.
They don't want to go in there and change it. They want people to experience it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to have a great experience and show them the best parts of it. But, so many times I think as Americans, we go places and we're like, we have to change this, or, it's not America. And it's like nice to hear be like, no, we're going in there, we're supporting them, we're using their animals, we're giving back to them, but, it's not changing them. I bet you Chloe would probably want them to, like she said, ride the whole way because, and not have support vehicles just because that's her. She's hardcore, right?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And then I really liked at the end when she was talking about things being figure outable, because I think that's a really important point. And, a lot of times I forget that. And I get,
me too.
I look at everything as this huge mountain, and either I'm going to roll up my sleeves and climb it, or I'm going to lay at the bottom of it and kick my feet and scream and cry that I have to climb it. And, I've been trying to say that to myself a lot more often is, everything is figure outable.
Yeah. And I think just having that mindset of being able to find a solution or looking for a solution if you don't have one, like, I think that's so important for anyone, especially if you have your own business, because there's not going to be somebody telling you what to do all the time. You have to figure it out for yourself. And, that takes, that mindset of knowing that you are going to figure it out one way or another. It may not happen right away, or it may not be easy. It may take a lot of money or take a lot of time or set you back 3 steps where you wanted to be 2 steps forward. I think that sort of thinking is really important. And like you said, that's going to stick with me for a long time of what she does and the way she just takes things on and says, well, sure, I can figure it out.
Yeah. I recommend watching the video with her. It's really funny. She gets a phone and they're like, oh, there's a wild baby and it's on a property. It's a foal. It's loose. We got to go. And then like hooked up the trailer, took another horse, and away they went and got the baby.
Yeah.
And it's really funny too. Side note, in New Zealand, they call horse trailers floats.
Really?
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
It's not a lorry.
No, it's a float. I was like, what? At first when I was reading, I was like, what are they talking about, floats? And then they said it in the video when she was like, oh, we got to get the float ready. And I was like, oh, it's a horse trailer.
Interesting. Well, yeah. You learn something new every day.
I know. That isn't, because all I have in my head is like a parade float. So I'm like,
right.
What? The horse is floating along. But anyway, yeah, she's just like such a roll up her sleeves and go and do it. So yeah, it was really cool. I'm glad that we had her on, and it's getting a little late though, our time, because we accommodated her a little bit on the other side. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up for today. And you can find the links to today's guests and the show notes at www.eqbusinesswomen.com. Equestrian B2B is out twice a month on the 1st and the 15th.
You can find out more at eqbusinesswomen.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Find Equestrian B2B wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review so more people can find us. You can have all 20 plus shows of the Horse Radio Network with you wherever you go with their free app for iPhone and Android. Go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network.
Now go find your adventure.